Aloha and welcome. I'm Micah Sky. Welcome to Matrix Biomechanics, Trinity of Health and Wellness. We are at day 2. Day 2 is going to be solely focused on neuromuscular release therapy, an ancient divine origin science that has come back now to humanity. That ancient divine origin science sits on a pillar parallel to the yogic sciences, Tai Chi, or any of the ancient origins of martial arts, Qigong, any of the ancient practices that if you really look at the anatomy and the physiology, they reflect the engineering of the machine and how the techniques either activate the system, the engineering of the system, the structure of the system, or the way that they activate or optimize a functionality, like oxygenating blood into your body and waking the brain up with more oxygenated blood, activating the dormant centers in the brain. It's a good example. And that's in reflection of what we went through yesterday, which is scratching the surface on the yogic sciences of breath. So these divine origin sciences, as an artist, which is what I've always been before anything else, and someone who likes to understand how things work and the brilliance of technological ingenuity. And I don't mean technological like an iPhone or this computer, which I've also found an appreciation for how they work and understanding how they work best. In fact, I think it's really interesting if you've ever seen a post for an iPhone and it says 20 things you didn't know that this device does, because most of us never read the manual, so we don't really understand a lot of these cool extra features that make the experience of this technology more efficient. Very much the divine origin sciences to me are part of an instruction manual for this technology that was never given to us. And so I'm actually currently writing something called the instruction manual for the human technology, which looks like a little computer manual. It's actually even how I've written it. That just has chapter after chapter of breaking down how this machine works. And it comes from I even write it in a very technological and kind of autonomous way. And I did that on purpose because I want people to start looking at this body, not with less of a personal side or an artistic or beauty side, but more looking into it as a piece of organic machinery that is actually divinely magical, but to see the mechanics behind it, thus matrix body mechanics. This body is a profound machine, and it has a bunch of other gears that it can go into. We've been driving around in first gear. There's a second, third, fourth, and fifth gear, so to speak. So we have to understand kind of the core fundamentals of how this thing operates, like the fact that you're breathing constantly and your breath is oxygenating your blood and it's sending oxygen to different areas of the tissue of the body, or how the digestion works, where the demethylation process and the methylation process for food. These are kind of base explorations that we're not going to go too deep on each one, but we're going to touch base on them when they're relevant to techniques and things that we're doing for the optimal performance of the machine. We're going to be referencing those. So I want you to think again, with the breath, we have all learned breath techniques or breathing patterning that has been intergenerationally passed down. And for most of us, they're not the divine reflection of optimal health. They're, and that's why we can point out the inefficiency like yesterday, and I'm just doing a little brief review. We looked at, the fact that most of human beings breathe very shallow. And as we breathe very shallow, we're not really regulating our heart rate. We're not really getting enough oxygen into our body. In fact, most people breathe in the lower respiratory. They don't even breathe in the upper respiratory. And that means there's 20 to 30% less oxygen that's getting absorbed because the lungs aren't even expanding properly because of the lack of proper breathing. So that means you age faster, your body dies faster. Excuse me. And so we're going to look at that on a level of neurochemistry, on a level of physical daily wear and tear. And then we're going to understand how the body was designed to be driven or operated on a daily basis. We're going to look at that kind of idealistic perspective. And then we're going to start learning techniques that can actually bridge that for you to step into what it feels like to be in a more idealistic experience of your body. Meaning, I want you to try these techniques after a day of using this vehicle and see how you feel the next day, even after you do the techniques. Oh, wow, my tissue feels really loose and open right now from that sweep of cross-laterally unlocking my tissue. And that's going to come down to understanding the principles and techniques of how to unlock the fabric of this stuff, how this stuff is structured, both the tissue here, superficial, the deeper stuff, and then the actual cellular structure and how it interweaves in both the muscle tissue, the fibrous tissue, even bone. Bone can be stimulated and can actually grow. You can dig and work on bone, right? And then we're going to explore, the mechanics of this tissue and what it's doing every day that most people don't realize, with some hopefully more relatable metaphors, like the fact that kind of like right now we're recording this, everything that happens to you, you're recording in a Zoom call, so to speak. Every day, a daily Zoom call is being recorded. After I do this class, it gives me the option, ask me where I want to save the file for this recording, right? And then there's a whole file with a memory to it that gets logged into my Finder. And I have to go there, and then I can export that, and I can actually, add titles to it and stuff like that, and the website at the bottom and music, and I can, edit a video together, so to speak. You again. It's the return of Snotty Cat, which we made a meme for yesterday, right off the bat. So, in the regard of unlocking and separating the tissue, we want to learn how the tissue works, how it's structured, and what it's designed to do. And if we learn what it's designed to do and how it's structured, we can learn how to unlock, open it, oxygenate it. And we're going to have some metaphors along the way that really help. One of them is that your tissue is like a garden, and that garden has healthy soil, or it has very dry, condensed soil. So we want to aerate the soil. We want to oxygenate the tissue like you aerate soil to make it healthy and let it breathe, because the body ultimately needs to breathe, and it's compressing all the time. We touched base yesterday on the fact that the ego exists in us because we have compressed this existence of ourselves into our tissue, as the world has said, pull yourself together. And through that compression process of our egoic interfaced mind into our muscular structure, we have compressed that dynamic. We've compressed the existence of ourselves in this series of fibrous and muscle tissues in the body. And we've also contained traumas and memory even in our soft tissue, our organs, right? So we tend to store trauma in different places, in different organs, in different areas of the body. And we're going to touch base on some of those areas that we found to even be sectional. Like, for instance, fear. A lot of fear comes through here. You can see somebody gets scared, they tighten these up. And anger, same. Here, in the micro expressions in the face, frowning like this. This is the micro expression for anger. So that's why people get this, is they programmed in the micro expression into the muscles in the face. And we all tend to do that. We actually program in an allotment of chemical memory through our expressions and micro expressions by just programming them into the tissue and through repetition, and also through not going through and cross-laterally opening the muscle that frowns daily, working on it if you had an intense day where you frowned a lot, and working on this tissue, unlocking it, opening it, decompressing it, getting it to relax and release, like I just did right there. Now, I just did a base principle and technique on myself, and that's kind of the cool thing is I really want you to understand that what we're teaching you is the keys to the universe. And when I see keys to the universe, I mean, when you learn how, okay, so it would be like understanding that there is a specific weave to a fabric. Once you understand how that weave works, you can actually recreate the pattern of that weave, okay? Or you can work within that weave of fabric. You can work within it to unlock it, aerate it, activate it. Okay, so we're going to learn the fabric of tissue and how to unlock it, decompress it. Imagine if tissue is always compressing constantly. If you learn the way that it unlocks, then you can learn to unlock the system. And because your tissue is alive and it is responsive, you can actually unlock the tissue and educate the tissue. The tissue becomes responsive. It understands how to unlock. So we're all going to go through kind of a refreshment package of the experience of unlocking tissue because nobody's taught us how to do this. So the first time you start cross-laterally manipulating and unlocking tissue, it's a journey. You come across all kinds of accumulations, crystallizations, calcifications in the body, neurochemical compression, inflammation. That's all sitting in the same fabric that was supposed to be getting cross-laterally unlocked so it could drain every day and wasn't getting that. Kind of like, again, jumping back to the brushing our teeth metaphor. If you didn't brush your teeth for 10 years, you'd have all this crap accumulated on them if they weren't all rotted away from cavities. So there's an accumulation that's come. So we'll cut it more realistic short. If you don't brush your teeth for 2 or 3 days, you're going to see an accumulation if you look in your mouth of tartar. And then eventually it hardens into plaque. But there's an accumulation that has built up. And so the first time that you break ground and go in and clean and clear that, it's going to be sensitive. It's going to be painful to do. It's not going to feel good because you are in a state of abstraction from the perfection of what you should have been. Hate to use that word, should have. What your ideal process was, which was every day you have been in this body since you were born, you should have been unlocking it. But you weren't taught this, neither was I, not the same way. I was raised with the Eastern yogic sciences, but and my mother used to give me massages regularly before I'd go to sleep, and that would help me go to sleep, which is a big part of why I believe I actually, I'm a healer and facilitator to this day. But it wasn't incorporated with the same level of awareness that every day, like, this is required to clear what I accumulated from the last day. If I was 4, 5, 6 years old, really clearly understanding that every day I was accumulating, I would have realistically applied a different level of interfacing with trying to do it on myself. And even if I said, oh, you know what, forget about releasing some of this stuff today, I would still have the awareness of what was happening if I chose to not clean and clear. Just like if you're like, oh, I'm too tired, I'm not brushing my teeth, I'll brush them in the morning. You have an awareness, this daily thing should still get done, even if you chose not to do it, rather than being completely oblivious. And I want you to think about that, is if we all were supposed to be brushing and flossing every day since we were babies, but we just didn't know. So we just were going through life just eating whatever we wanted to, drinking sugary things before we go to sleep, and our mouth is closed, and those sugars sit on the teeth, and there's a bacteria. And we'd be going through life with zero awareness that we actually needed to be doing something, rather than knowing across the world that everyone should be focused to some degree on keeping your mouth clean or having oral hygiene, or if not, this is the end result from it. So now, directing that perception and metaphor to the body, we have a whole entire planet of humans that have not been touched enough, that have not been working with cross laterally. So what am I doing? I'm going up and down and side to side. So this is just a basic technique that I do on my chest. This is the chest sequence that we do, and I'm just really kind of showing a basic cross-lateral manipulation that's really easy to see because it's both dynamic, meaning I'm doing both sides, so you can really see how it works. And also, this is a good directional interface because you can really see the side to side and up and down. You can see what cross-lateral movement really is, which is kind of a cross pattern. And I usually teach with this, this is Metatron's cube, sacred geometry. This is a great key for how the fabric of your body works. If I were to put my thumb in the center, here, this would be kind of like a directional pad, like a little joystick. So you can see up and down, side to side, up and down, side to side, and circle. So the up and down, the side to side, the circle pattern, this is different ways to unlock all this tissue in its tiniest infrastructure, at its most infinitesimal design linking structure. These are the movements that get it to open and activate, release, detox, drain. So that means that the entire body, anywhere, we could technically do this kind of a movement, and we're going to unlock the tissue itself. Now, there are all types of hand tools. We have a rake here, okay? We have, it's called a mace, which is a regular fist. We have a plucking tool. We have a hook tool. These are different instruments, kind of like your dentist would use to get to the different crevices and areas to kind of clean and scrape off and unlock and break down areas of the body. You can see I'm using a rake on my chest, up and down, side to side, up and down, side to side, up and down, side to side. Okay? So we're going to be going through the foundational principle of what's called anchor, plant, and pull. APP. Okay? Anchor, plant, pull. This is the perforating technique of how to bypass superficial layers of tissue. I'm going to say this slow because it's a pretty full sentence. It is the basic perforating technique to transcend or go past superficial layers of tissue to work within deeper structural dynamics of movement, unlocking, activation. We're going to go through the principles and techniques. We're going to go through understanding how to unlock fabric. And then we're probably going to focus on a couple areas, like I said, the chest for the lung points. Okay. Just showing you the vagus nerve, showing you the sinus points today. These are points that are, these sequences are relevant, obviously, for, the world today, for activating your lungs, whether you believe in a virus or whether you understand the technology that is being integrated around the planet right now that is adding another level of radio frequency bandwidth and electromagnetics, electrifying the atmosphere, that like every other time it was done, 1918 or 1968, there was a effect on the living organisms on the planet, and there was naturally a adaptation, mutation, which in a mutation a lot of times, there's a percentage of the species that shifts through the mutation. And so whether you understand or believe in a virus, or you understand the technology, or a combination of both, foundationally, we're looking at the oxygen and the iodine around you being compromised, and literally in the space around you. Okay? Because that's what this technology does. It disrupts the electrons in literally the electrons of the oxygen in the atmosphere around you, and it causes the electrons to be compromised and not interface properly, which breaks up O2. It actually basically removes the oxygen from the space around you, okay? Which basically starts killing your body. So then, of course, when you look at the aspect of what this virus does, it also creates a compromise to the lungs and the sinus. So we want to activate the vagus nerve, which is the overseer gland for the body itself. And we want to activate the lungs and the sinus, which is going to stimulate the automation, because your body is running on automation. Right now, you're focusing on me talking about this, and your body is running on automation to do all of the thousands of processes that are happening to keep this system functioning. So I want you to, again, sit with that. This technology is running on an automation that you are not really personally, as in consciously, involved in a good portion of what that is, whether it's digesting your food or respirating and oxygenating the blood. So these processes of automation are designed, yes, to run efficiently, but you are designed, like we've established, to be cross-laterally opening the tissue since you were little. Meaning you, the user of the vehicle, were designed to do one thing specifically, besides whatever physical activities and living in this body you want to do, in terms of service and activation to the vehicle and some type of maintenance. The system pretty much runs on automation. It filters, it detoxes, it regenerates, it heals. But the user of the vehicle, its one role is to stimulate the tissue that's running on automation so that the automation process is more efficient. Now, we've been living for years, not doing the engineered function of the user of the vehicle, the one thing we're supposed to be doing. We've just been operating the vehicle, okay, and really not taking care of getting it serviced at all, or self-servicing it. Maybe stretching, maybe doing some physical working out. That's great. Those are good things. There's still wear and tear. Those are still activities. Yoga is still a physical activity that it requires biochemical operation to do, meaning you're sending neurochemicals to move physically, to do these poses, to breathe in different ways. Some of the breath techniques, especially the more intense ones, where we're activating the body. You're creating, your heart rate's 160. You're creating the same heart rate as if you were running, but we're sitting in place. These are still physical activities. They're doing things to activate the body. They turn the cells on. We're opening and draining and helping the body detox, but it's still a physical act. The body requires service and stimulation, release, activation from a state of passivity. Meaning, this arm, despite what I do to stretch it, open it up these ways, it actually still requires me to take the other arm, so one side active, treating the other. And this is a big thing with self-treatment. You're going to play two roles. You're going to be the practitioner and the patient, meaning you have to be initiating release on yourself and also kind of like in the zone of relaxing and receiving. So one side has to stay relaxed while the other side is implementing the release. So I'm just doing some basic cross-lateral manipulation to show you. This arm is laying still, it's in a state of passivity, and this hand and arm is treating the tissue while it is just in a state of passivity and rest, meaning it is just getting an, a manual releasing and activation of the tissue while it's doing nothing. It's not doing anything. It's not stretching it to open it. It's just laying in a passive state. So we were supposed to be going back and forth and doing this to ourselves daily. Again, just like it's just so. If you can't get it from the brushing the teeth metaphor, I just don't. I don't know how else to really relate. It's so basic, down to you could half-ass brush your teeth and you can really get in there. Sometimes I'll take this baking soda whitening powder and I will literally put it on an old rag or a washcloth. I'll put hydrogen peroxide in the washcloth. I'll dump the powder on and I'll actually take and I will buff my teeth. Literally, you can make your teeth white and so bright by just doing, and it's separate from brushing. I'll literally just go along the surface and you can buff them brighter. It's just a little bit extra effort to do so to produce a result. So just the same, this body it requires even just structurally this kind of muscle to muscle, ligament to ligament activation. Now you might think that seems like a lot of work. It's weird that it seems unpractical that you would have to do this every day to use this body. Like, seems like it should be more efficient and just self detoxing and self releasing. And well, that's your perception. If you have 24 hours in a day and you spend a good majority of that day putting your body through all kinds of things so that your consciousness through your brain and your five sense reality can have this five sense reality experience, and you're using this machine to do that for 24 hours, one could say that taking 20 or 30 minutes to go through your system, even in general sweep, out of that 24 hours, it's actually a pretty good deal, pretty good ratio to put in just a little time every day for a body that can swim in oceans and climb mountains and explore tantric sciences and have orgasms and eat amazing food and jump out of a plane and skydive. And this experience, this avatar is quite a magical gift. And if all you have to do to get it to run at an optimal level is take 15 minutes out of your day at 24 hours, which, by the way, I recommend, and I'm going to rotate the camera over to the table where I'm going to lay down to show you how to do some of this, because that's practical. Because in bed, when you're trying to go to sleep, you're already trying to decompress, you're trying to get out of your head, you're trying to get more relaxed and feeling the parasympathetic nervous system and just the whole body can relax. So you can feel more spaciousness and stillness. Doing a little body work on yourself and activating the tissue is going to cause the tissue to want to relax and lay at rest. And it's going to promote a deeper and more effortless transition into deeper sleep, into theta, deeper generation sleep state, transitioning through brainwave states to get to the deep REM sleep, which is where we heal the most. But most of our systems are so glitchy that we're just static. Even when we try to lay still, even if we try to meditate, we're fidgeting. So that's why the breath work or doing just even a little cross-lateral release on yourself, you'll feel your system kind of relax and decompress. Okay. So before we get in principles and techniques, before we get into hand tools, before we get into some sequences for immunity that we're going to do, I kind of, again, wanted to do an opening discussion and kind of let some more people filter in. But I'd like to create the container as we did yesterday. And we addressed that, when we have interactions with each other, they tend to be based on transience. And one of the powerful things about creating a containment field is you can contain energy, you can contain information, you can contain teachings in it. And that containment usually comes by us unifying and harmonizing. We're going to do that with a little sound. We're just going to do Ong today, A-N-G, Ong. And we're going to do just 3 of them. Okay. And as we do these, Ong, not Om, just Ong. Okay, there's a there's so many beautiful, sacred, ancient sound frequencies besides Om, Ong, Na, um, Sa, Se, and we'll explore those maybe at some point. But Ong is a really nice one, and it's going to kind of set our tone and create a field of space for us. And it's going to ground in some of what we're going to get into, which, you know, it's not overwhelming for me because I've been living and breathing what it is to unlock the fabric of your body, but it can be more alienating or challenging. And I want you to really look at that. Look how alienated you are to touch your body, to feel your body, to understand that you can activate it and you can actually create changes in it. And that's one of the things that my overall goal with, we're going to be doing like much more advanced and in-depth programs. So this is just kind of an introduction for people as a free offering for you to kind of check out what we're going to be getting into. Um, and these free offerings are designed to kind of introduce the keys to your universe, which is showing you just the principles and techniques how to unlock your tissue. From there, there's an entire sequence pattern of going head to toe through the whole body and a sequential order with which to unlock the system that produces its own magical effect. And that's what the 12 video series is for the self-treatment system for NMRT. But for me to just give you the principles and techniques that you could really just point to point, focus point to focus point, you can work on any part of your body with it. Not only is it going to get you better at doing principles and techniques and learning how to cross-laterally unlock your Legos, your building blocks, but then if you choose to explore deeper and educate yourself deeper on how to unlock the system, you're going to be so good at the principles and techniques that learning the sequences to do the whole thing is going to be far more enjoyable than trying to work out the bugs and the muscle memory of doing this neuromuscular release techniques, which you're going to find challenges, and we're going to address those today. One of the big ones is learning how to actually touch yourself without just bullying yourself to try to release. And we're going to explore the mechanics of that and get into a few sections of the body. And it's going to give really cool perspective for what we're going to be offering coming up and how deeply you might want to dive into understanding it. We're going to make the 12 video series individually acquirable, meaning you don't have to buy or purchase the whole 12 videos. You can just get one video. You could just get feet and ankles, or you could just get respiratory and sinus, or you could just get arms, brachial plexus, and you could get head, organic facelift sequence. You can choose what interests you or where you may have areas of injury, and from taking on that video where each one is going to be broken down instructionally, by learning that, let's say that I started with arms and the brachial plexus, and it just changed all. I got this video, I've been working with it, it's been amazing. I've learned how to release my arms, and they feel so different. How would I not be compelled to explore the other videos to understand how to unlock different areas? Besides what I'm just doing by kind of, oh, this area hurts, let me do this cross-lateral unlocking from my little decoder. Because that's what this is. This is a directional reference, like a ruler, or something that we're going to learn how to unlock increments of tissue off of its structure and design. Like I said, remember, it has a structure that goes across and along, and if we go in a circle of it, we kind of cover that same cross-lateral fiber or fabric or structure, and we can unlock it. And when we do this, there's a decompression process that drains memory, opens and releases and activates, and the tissue gets healthier and stronger. Okay. So like yesterday, we're going to take our right and our left hand, rubbing them together, building kinetic heat, placing at the heart center. We're going to inhale twice, and on the third one, we're going to release the sound vibration Ong. And number ah, so my jaw is going to be dropped. Ah, the sound resonance here, you'll feel it through the throat and here. And just explore your sound resonance in your own space. Feel that sound vibration as we do these. And we're going to do the 3 of these. Then I'm going to take a deep breath and hold and squeeze. And like yesterday, brief review, we're going to be drawing the oxygen up, pulling it up, activating the bandhas, these locked centers at the root, the abdomen, the chest, the throat, tongue pressed to the roof of the mouth, eyes roll to the third eye. And we're going to be drawing that energy up with the visualization of a column of light from earth to sky, coming up the top and coming back around and up through the roots. Okay, creating that toroidal field. And from there, we're going to dive right into the principles and techniques. And I want you to feel how we ground the space, separate from me just talking and kind of introing into what we're doing today. I want you to feel how the energy changes and contains and gets more still or more concentrated or more focused for you to receive. That's why I wanted to intro without and just open and go right into a dialogue like so many educational videos. And then I wanted to create this container and move forward and see if you feel a difference. As I've said before, the results should show you with anything that you're doing. Okay? So again, building that heat, kinetic, bioelectric activation to the heart center where you have the electromagnetic field, and inhaling and exhaling and inhaling and exhaling and inhale to tune in. Deep breath, column of light from up the sky. Sip a little more through your mouth. And hold. Dropping into the Ujjayi breath after that. Going right into the Ujjayi. Through the nose, through the throat. Sipping the breath, cooling. Feeling the expansion of that breath. That visualization, the sound frequency. I'm not sure about you, but I'm feeling much more grounded and centered to show you these techniques and principles. Ready. Building this energy energetically, and I'm shooting it at you. Energetically, first, before I talk about it. So the energy will already be placed in your field, and now I'm going to fill in the intellectual, the technological, the knowledge-based side, the mental side, the information side. How's our tissue structured? Like this. So it has a crisscross, interwoven, call it a cross-lateral fibrous structure, so to speak, whether it's muscle fiber, whether it is the myofascial webbing, whether it is even the epidermal and dermal layers. So we're going past now structure, we're going down to the little cells of each one of our cells that are knitted together, so to speak. They're all bonded together in their tissue. When we go across and along the tissue, so I say across because these muscles are running down. So I'm going across these muscles and I'm going lengthwise down them, right? But these muscles are going this way. So technically across would be this way and along would be this way because the pectoralis major minor attach here at the breastplate, okay, along the sutures here at the sternum. And these muscle bands move this way and they attach up over here. So it's really good, and I fully support you to pop open an anatomy or physiology book or go online and just look up images for anatomy, muscles. Pick a muscle, pectoralis major minor. Take a look at what these muscles look like. Look at their structure, and you'll see how they have a shape and a direction. And then you can also feel what they do. I'm contracting the muscle right now. It's pulling my shoulder in. It's contracting and locking and making it hard and round. And I can feel the contraction. Now, when I try to open and stretch it, I can see the length that it's going. I can feel it extend all the way out. Okay? So that is the body mechanics for this muscle. And I'm getting more acclimated to its mechanical side and understanding, more focused, how the actual thing is structured. So when I understand how I want to unlock it, I understand that I'm going to start at one end, the more centralized end to the center point of the body. And I'm going to start going across it all the way out, and I'm going to know how to lengthen it all the way out, okay? I'm going to lengthen it out. I'm going to create more width with this specific principle and technique, the foundational principle and technique of neuromuscular release therapy, which is anchor, plant, and pull. Okay, so we're going to look at that on the most generalized and applicable part of us, which is our interactive tools of the world, which is our arms. And I'm going to demonstrate the techniques and the foundational principle on my forearm right here. Okay, so my forearm has muscles that attach along the bones in the arm, okay, in the forearm, and they go lengthwise down the arm. So we know that the structure of these muscles, imagine they're like a series of rubber bands going down. And I want you to start trying to see through your skin. And a lot of this, like I said, is looking at the structure of the muscular anatomy, looking at your body's machinery with the hood up. So in order to learn about your engine for your car, you got to open the hood and take a look inside. So I'm going to support you to take a look inside. And actually, let's see if I can bring one up right now. Let's see if I can. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to try sharing this. Those are the hand techniques. Here we go. Let's just take a look at this right here. All right. So let's just take a look at that muscle. We can see the length of it, how it's moving. You can see these little fibrous bundles here. You can see the fibers. And the fibers inside each one of these aspects of the tendons of this muscle are tiny little fibers. Okay? And let's see if I can get a close up. There we go. Let's take a look at this one. So this is kind of a neat way to look at it. It's kind of more, it's not as accurate. It's more computer kind of structured. You can see all these little tendinous fibers. You can see a direction to each one of them and kind of a structure to their fabric where we're going to go across and along them. And you can see where these little nerves here, the various wires are kind of run around along the muscles. We're going to be going across and along the fabric and hitting the nerves, the wires along the way. And that's where these principles and techniques are designed to treat muscle, bone, nerve, lymphatic clusters, and all the lymphatic glands. We're perforating and kind of stimulating and flossing and brushing everything. We're covering everything as we go along. So muscles in the arm, they have a length. Imagine those lines that you saw from the diagram I just showed. Imagine those lines going down this way, okay? So principles and techniques are as such. Anchor, plant, and pull. What does that mean? Well, first of all, we're going to use a tool. I'm going to be using my thumb, okay? Basic thumb technique. I'm just going to be using the generic thumb. When I say that, I mean there's no specific tool. I'm not doing like a plucking technique or a hook. I'm just using the pad of my thumb to demonstrate a very puritanical demonstration of the technique. I'm pressing into the tissue. I'm going across. And then I'm soft again. In body work, in physical therapy, in massage, we call this feathering. So I'm actually going from a deeply anchored point where I manipulated the tissue in the direction I desired. And then I go soft, move along to the next point, anchor in, then initiate that movement. Then I'm soft to the next point, anchor in, soft, next point, anchor in, movement, soft, feathering to the next point. We're like a sewing machine. Anchor, plant, and pull is like a sewing machine going down, creating the stitch, coming back up, moving to the next point, down, creating the stitch, up, down, stitch. That's what I'm doing here. I am literally pressing in. This time I'm going in a circle, so I'm not going, okay? So I'm going in a circle with that anchored press. Then I'm soft, I'm pressing in again. I'm doing a circle, soft, pressing in, then initiating that circular movement in the tissue. And what you'll feel is you can feel how when you press in deeper and then initiate the movement, you're going to a deeper structural level. But you have to go soft and move to the next point and press in again to create something called kinesthetic invisibility, which is where you will resist less than if I'm deep and I try to just keep that deep pressure as I try to transition to the next point. It's kind of draggy and intense, and it causes more resistance for me even treating myself. So kinesthetic invisibility is something we use in martial arts. If somebody grips my wrist and I'm tense, now normally I demonstrate this with somebody else, but the neat thing is I can do this to myself. You can really feel it. 1 second, sorry about that, friends. There we are. So if I grip on, all right, somebody grabs me, if I grip myself, if I'm tense here, I can feel everything that this arm's trying to do to get away or to resist. But if I grip and this arm is relaxed and the rest of my body is moving, so I can't feel when I do this here and this is relaxed here, this arm can't feel any real movement. It's hard for me to feel a read on what's happening here because this is moving, but the contact, the point of contact is relaxed, all right? So when I press in and I stimulate that activation and I go soft to the next point with that feather, it causes the tissue, even if it's reacting from the depth of that technique, when everything relaxes, the tissue relaxes. So this allows me to navigate with more grace and ease. Now, I'm not trying to do a slight on rolfing or other forms of structural integration, but that was one of the things that many patients and also me as a practitioner didn't resonate with, is these dragging friction-based strokes that are, to me, very counterintuitive. They cause me to react to the actual tissue being in the friction from the tissue. I don't like it. The man who uncovered the base principles of what we're doing right now, cross-lateral and locking, who I apprenticed with, and he helped me fix my body. He was working with Ida Rolf before she started school, and that was his number one thing that he did not resonate with, was the deep dragging strokes. And so what was discovered was we could press deep and initiate a release and then go soft to the next point and move in a succession of points, which really, again, if you think about perforating something, we're creating a series of perforations in the tissue and aerating it so the fresh blood and oxygen flood into those areas. And the soft, subtle feathering in between the deep activation points allows the body to relax, and it allows the person, whether it's you working on someone else or working on yourself, to navigate with more grace and ease through the tissue without getting tissue reacting. Okay? So I'm going to do the other arm because this arm's all loose now. I don't want to balance it. Okay. So let's do this next arm together. Okay? So I want you to, without getting into, we're not going to get into the techniques yet. I want you to just get a base principle without even knowing names of techniques or anything like that. I want you to just take your thumb. I want you to line up your forearms so you feel like you're along it here. See how I can actually even use my fingers under here to kind of engage more pressure if I want to. But the goal is to press in, rotate in a circle, go soft with your pressure. So don't move from that anchored point. Once you create that deep circle, all right, then relax. So the pressure disengages. Now gently draw your thumb like an inch down to the next point and press in, circle, soft, feather technique, about an inch to the next point, press in, circle, soft, feather to the next technique, press in, circle, soft, feather to the next point, anchor, plant. Pulling in a circle is really what I'm doing right now. So when I say circle, that's kind of you pulling the tissue around in a circle to your anchor. Then I'm soft to the next point, circle, soft, feather to the next point. Now, let's look at the mechanics, okay? And I want you guys to move to the next. So imagine 3 lines you're doing. So I just did the first one here, move to the middle now, and I want you to keep going while I talk. So circling, deep circle, anchor, plant, and pull, soft to the next point, press in, anchor, circle, soft, feather to the next point, anchor, plant, and pull, circle, soft, and you're going to feather to the next point and anchor, plant, and pull, and soft to the next one. What am I doing right now? Let's take a look. The point is where I'm anchoring. That's the deep penetration. That's the masculine. I'm anchoring. I'm penetrating in deeply to where the trauma is. Ooh, that's tender right there. I'm that right. I'm manipulating, circular manipulation. Then I'm soft. And that feather technique is the feminine. Okay? That feather technique causes the cells and the body, my body specifically right now, as much as I want to react to, oof, that's intense, when it goes soft and that feather technique comes in, it's comforting. It's the feminine. It's soft. And then it leads up to that next point of penetration, of depth, of masculine. So what am I doing right now? I'm doing feminine, masculine, interchanging touch. Masculine, deep, penetrating, activating, detoxing, releasing, then soft, nurturing. Just that little soft in between each point, it does something. You should feel there's a polarity right now happening through touch. We went through polarity with breath yesterday. We went through breath of fire and breath of fire and building fire in the field. And then we had the Ujjayi breath, which is calming and cooling through the nose and the throat. Okay? You have polarity in you. You have a masculine and feminine polarity in your vessel. All humans do. We have now covered the avenue of polarity through breath, and now we're introducing just a general understanding of polarity through touch. Deep, penetrating, masculine, soft, feather into the next point, and I'm going masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. And they work through their polarity in conjunction. The feminine causes the tissue to relax for a moment before it gets stimulated again and soft and stimulated and soft and stimulated. Ooh. So right now, I don't know about you, but as I've done my 3 strips, I am really identifying where I have some tension. I can see there's 2 tendons that are just bound together right now. They've atrophied together. And I want you to think about that. Just really quick side note metaphor. Here's your muscles when they're brand new. See how they move? Look at their individuality. See how they're all separate? My fingers each representing a different muscle in your body. Now, over time, watch how they knot together. Look at the range there. Wow, that is just way different than that, huh? So this is our entire system of rubber bands and muscles through here. They start off like this, and over time, remember I said the ego compresses, and look at the stagnancy, look at the resistance, look at that compromise here, okay? So we are going to activate through masculine and through feminine in touch, unlocking the tissue. And as we do this, not only is there a natural balancing to our polarity between masculine and feminine that's happening just kind of in the background of the frequency and the energy, but now I'm getting a full awareness of how much, like, I can see the areas that need it more than other areas. How about that? I've done a full scan, and kind of like if I was brushing or flossing, and I felt like, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff that gets stuck in these couple specific teeth. All right, these are spots I need to really stay present on. By exploring yourself more, you get more detail, you get more awareness, information, and more of a relationship with the system and knowing it and where it's currently at and where you can take it. If I didn't know right now through sweeping my forearm how tight these 2 muscles were right here, because I really got to dive in and feel like I need to really focus on this area. So I might do a couple other sweeps right here, or I might just spend the next 10 minutes breaking this up before I move to the next section of the body, okay? At the same time, don't look at it as work, because this feels amazing right now, just even with what I did, okay? So you're going to get results that are gratifying or magical. I mean, they really are, they become, once you get through the initial inflammation that comes with kind of doing a spring cleaning, so to speak, of your body, this stuff becomes really enjoyable, pleasurable. And you'll actually look forward. Oh, I can't wait to treat my arms today. Oh, I just need to, get by yourself, create an environment where you can focus on and isolate to work on yourself. And like I said, a really good platform is before you go to sleep, because you're already by yourself. You're usually by yourself in your own space. I recommend sleeping in your own energy field. And it's quiet time. It's time to ground in and center, right? So we've gone through the base principle, right? Exploring it. I would like to, number one, just touch base, and anyone can unmute audio. Has everyone gotten a chance to sweep their forearms? 3 strips on each one. And does anyone have any questions on those? You can unmute your mic and ask them now before I go into the actual techniques. Or you can shoot something in the chat if you want to.
How would you go about this if the process is initially unbearable?
That's a good question, actually, because it's a very realistic question, because I've used the metaphor that when you, if you hadn't flossed in like a year and you flossed, oh my gosh, it would be so painful. I'm gonna just try to boost the mental morale that you're gonna go to a depth that feels tolerable, that you can make it through, that is bearable. So that's the best way that I'm going to state that is, um, you have to find a point that you can take that's bearable, because um, um, tolerance is a funny thing. It's actually one of your greatest superpowers as you start aging and you get older, is you learn that the wisest people that you know have a profound level of tolerance. And it's actually one of the main things that you don't like about humanity's egoic mind, or the ego of humanity, is a tolerance. I mean, we're seeing it in this day, we're seeing it just rampant globally right now. I mean, there's a profound level of censorship, which is a lack of tolerance for controlling a narrative, and letting those individuals decide. Um, so bringing it focused to the point so we can keep moving forward is, I'm going to say, find find your bearable place, find your tolerance, and push a little bit past it, and it will keep expanding. I know that the human body is carrying a lot of inflammation and pain, and it's sadly part of the downward spiral why we don't work on ourselves, why we don't dive into this matrix, is because we tend to avoid pain at all costs. In your life, you do everything for one of two reasons: to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. So, unfortunately, because nobody taught you that you're supposed to be releasing this and getting released by your parents since you're a little baby, even since we're little kids, if we had siblings, we'd be working on each other, parents would be working. This is the reality that I see. This is the idealistic, evolved, divine potential humanity that I see, is a species that was integrated with these divine origin sciences, whether it's yogic sciences, NMRT, and biochemical nutrition, from a perspective of how the body processes and synthesizes matter. We all should have been integrated into this. And so everything we're doing right now, everything, even me showing you these techniques, your question, it is kind of, it is a state of abstraction. We shouldn't be here. So it should feel counterintuitive. All of this should. And that's my biggest resistance over the years in trying to get people to unlock their systems, is it should feel counterproductive, because we are all so far off from our divine nature. We have been raised for decades so far away from divine basic functions of how to do things, whether, I said before, breathing, pooping, walking. How do you chew your food? How many times do you chew your food before you swallow? Because it should be like 30 to 50. I guarantee most of us, chomp, 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 swallow back, chomp, 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 swallow back. You are not breaking down your food with the enzymes in your saliva so that your digestion has an easier processing. So we have been taught to shovel food back, not even chew it to the level of degrees, because nobody taught us we should chew that many times. Try chewing your food 30 times, each bite. Notice how different that is from what you're used to. So we're sending material back that hasn't even been broken down properly. So where does that put more of the breakdown process and stress? Boom, small intestine and everything that follows. I'm just giving you one example. That we are all in a very abnormal, abstract space for what it is to be human, for the magic, for the heaven on earth that it is to be human. We are in a state of hell because we've been so warped from our nature, and it's accumulated over so many years, that to find our way back to heaven, we have to face all of it. So you have to be willing to face the unbearable sensation of pressing into your tissue. And you have to just face it and go through it. And I promise you, as you do, as I do each one of these, that first one was really intense. Whew. So, by the way, I'm bending now. You notice I'm doing what we call a plucking tool. So I'm actually bending and I'm doing that same circle. I'm just not using the pad of the thumb. That's more of a warm-up technique. About to get into techniques right now. I'm just showing you. As I go through this, I'm on row number 2. Here's number 3. Circle, circle. Now you notice I'm going fast, but I want to very much acknowledge and identify past the depth that you're seeing. I'm soft, and then I'm deep again, and I'm soft, deep, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. I am literally creating that dynamic polarity touch through the whole. And I can feel the difference because look, now I'm just doing hard. I'm not creating any type of, I'm just going deep, transitioning deep. It just feels more resistance. When I'm deep and I'm soft and I'm deep, soft, deep, soft, deep, soft feather to my anchored plant and pull all the way down. So let's get into, first and foremost, the techniques. 4 principal techniques we apply the anchor, plant, and pull method for NMRT with. The first of those, and I'm actually going to demonstrate them all on this little diagram, our sacred geometry diagram, because I feel like it's a good visual reference for you. So I'm going to press in with the flat of my thumb, okay? And the flat of my thumb here is going to be the tool that we'll be exploring all of the techniques with. It's super generic. It's very easy to use. And once we get the techniques clear, I'm going to introduce hand tools. And each one of the hand tools, you can apply the principles to your tissue with any one of the hand tools, okay? I'm going to give you an example with the first technique, and then it'll make sense down the road. So using my thumb here, kneading is the first technique. And a kneading technique is I'm planting through the epidermal and dermal layers, rotating in a circle, and then I'm feathering to the next point and rotating in that circle after I anchor. So the planting, so anchor, plant, pull. The anchor and the plant is the thumb. What is the pulling? The pull of anchor, plant, and pull in the principle. The pull means whatever directional movement you're going to do on the tissue. So we're pulling the tissue into a circle. So we've anchored, we've planted, we're now pulling into a kneading, a circular movement where if you notice from the sacred geometry here, if we go this way and this way, that aligns to these principal lines of Metatron's cube here. But you notice if we go in a circle, we hit every degree of all of the directional angles of the geometry. If we go side to side, we're linear, okay, so we're going across long. Length, width in terms of dimension. Circle is going to cover almost all dimensional realms. So as a technique, kneading is our warm-up technique. It's really nice. It can be very soft. So when I press in and I plant in and I do a circular movement, I don't have to press gangster. In fact, it's nice to just warm your tissue up. You can see how soft I'm kind of doing with this, but I'm still planting, I'm pressing in, then I'm soft to the next point, soft to the next point. And I'm actually not even really hard when I'm doing it, but I just mean I'm soft as in softer than the depth of pressing. Planting, 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 okay? Planting. So you can see I'm kneading the whole forearm here, kneading, kneading, all the way down, okay? Kneading, all right? So after kneading, the circular movement, we go in a cross movement. So remember, these muscles go this way. So for this specific muscle I'm demonstrating, this would be called a strum. So we have kneading, we have strumming, which is going across the tissue. So check it out, plant and pull, soft, plant and pull, soft, plant and pull, soft, plant and pull, plant and pull, okay? So next we have striding, okay? Now striding is I'm going to go the length of the muscle. I've gone across the muscle kind of like a guitar string, like we're strumming. Now I'm going to go striding. I'm going to go along. So I'm planting and pulling, planting and pulling, planting and pulling, planting and pulling. Now I'm going to segue here and show you just conceptually. Here's a mace. Mace is a hardened, tightened fist that you use the angle of the knuckles here. So it's a more specific tool. A fist tool would be using the flat. Okay, so we have flat, mace, fist tool. Okay, this is going to be less intense. This is going to be digging deeper. This would be a more advanced technique you do after a warm-up like this. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a stride, which is the technique I'm introducing, with a mace. Plant and pull, plant and pull, plant and pull. So I'm going along the tissue. See that? Along with my mace. I'm planting and pulling, then I'm soft. Plant and pull, soft. Plant, pull, soft. So you can still see, even with that mace, I'm still going to be deep, and I'm going to go lengthwise, and then I'm going to soften, press in, lengthen, soft, deep, soft feathering, plant and pull, soft feathering, plant and pull, down, okay? So just an example of how to use another tool with this technique. So we have striding. Now, so we've got kneading, strumming, striding, and the last one we're going to be incorporating with the plucking tool, okay? Now, the first three are designed to warm up my arm, warm the tissue, and set up for the deeper, which is going to be from right here. So you'll notice I'm going to find where the muscle is. I'm going to find the edge of it. I can feel it right here. And I'm going to notice how I'm not digging with my thumb. So this tool stays solid. It doesn't move like this. This is one of the challenges for you in learning these techniques properly. You're going to want to dig from here. Don't do it. This should stay solid, just like a rake in NMRT. This is a rake tool, just like a rake in your garden. The rake prongs don't move. They stay solid and you rake with it, okay? All of our hand tools, you have to hold a steady, solid form and initiate from back here, from here. I'm initiating the movement. If I initiate from here, it doesn't feel as good. It's actually more agitating. It's more antagonistic in a sense. Whereas, and I'm going to explain the principles of this. It's really, really brilliant. So with the plucking, I'm turning my whole hand. You see that? See how the thumb isn't doing the digging here? I'm holding, I'm anchoring in. The whole hand and arm is turning. The form is staying the same. Boom. Now, I come back soft to the next point. Boom. Soft to the next point. Soft to the, ooh, that was a big one. So as I get down to the tendons here, all right, when I go over one of these like that, ooh, it sends electricity right down. In fact, one of the primary ones is the brachial plexus, and it comes right under here. Now, I make a C shape when I do this, okay? And I stick the thumb in, and I'm not, even though it's held as a form that's hard, that's not digging, it also has sensitivity. So I almost put it kind of gently in to the tendons here. And instead, I'm under here now, instead of digging, I just take it and I turn the whole hand, keeping the form solid. Ooh, so that just sent electricity down my arm because you have the brachial plexus nerve right here. So you can see right along here, brachial plexus is right up through here. This is, okay, there we go. I'm just gonna move this window out of the way. There we go. See, you guys are probably seeing the converting thing right now is what I'm hoping, so you can see I'm flying with about 40% visual because of some of these windows in the way. All right, so here we go. Brachial plexus. So that's the median nerve. Brachial plexus is right up in here. Okay. Not sure where this is all at. So yeah, so the brachial plexus comes right through here, and you can see this whole junction where my mouse is right here. You can see this whole junction of nerves right there This is where we want to just press right in here, planting the thumb, and we turn. See how I'm turning? My whole arm and hand are turning. Got it. Ooh, well, yeah. And now I'm following it down. See, every one of these, notice how I'm turning, turning, turning. Now from here, as I come down from here, I'm going to bend this. And notice how from where my thumb is, so I don't lose my place, I pivot the hand down. And notice how I can now work on myself with that same plucking technique. You can see I'm going right along this bunch of tendons and muscles, separating, individualizing, finishing out on the hand, where one of the easiest nerves to get, because I want you to feel what it is to reflex the nerve, is right here in the base of the palm. And like I said, plucking tool, I'm turning the whole hand. Here's what that does. Okay, let's get into what that's all about. If my point of contact is my point of action, meaning if I'm digging from this point, if the action of my release and my reflex or my technique is from my point here, it's going to cause more resistance. You're going to react to it. If my point of action is back here and my point of contact is stillness, not movement, is just still, and everything else is moving, there's going to be less of a reaction from your tissue. There's going to be less of a resistance from your tissue, okay? So when I'm doing this, if I'm incorporating the entire tool with my plucking tool, which is going to include all the way up here, then I'm going to be able to navigate far more gracefully than if I'm just trying to dig away at this. By the way, part of what comes up, it's almost more distracting than learning the techniques, is just coming face to face with how much pain and intensity is in you. And that's why I just want to reflect again my appreciation for the question initially, what if it's just unbearable? I totally get it. But the thing is, it is bearable. You can do it. Just don't go crazy extreme to where it's unbearable. Go to where it's uncomfortable and like pushes your bearable side by like 5 degrees, or like a quarter mile past bearable for you. But don't have to go super extreme into the unbearable right away. The neat thing about decompressing and detoxifying and unlocking your tissue is it is progressive, meaning just like that yoga class, if you did yoga for the first time and you're like, dude, I'm so sore, you can barely move, your body feels like it's on fire if you really did a very intensive class. And you're almost like, screw yoga, forget about this, I don't want to do it. And then you go back, if you follow through and you show up and you go back to the sciences and you explore it again, you'll notice that second round, oh my gosh, this is a little bit different. I can actually do this. I can hang with this. This is, wow, okay. And then you start building up a tolerance and endurance, a connection to that system. And that is where you are earning the results. You're earning your freedom. You're earning your liberation process. We all chose to be created in a world where we weren't raised with these divine origin sciences. We were raised in ignorance. We were raised in fear or shut down. And that we had to find them and find our way back to them. And then we created this weird anomaly, this abnormality, this abstraction of being so far away from these sciences and the way we should be experiencing them initially, that they seem maybe very alienating or torturous or painful. But that's because our reference for them being enjoyable or orgasmic, okay, that's great. It finally saved. That our reference point for the enjoyable experience side, or what the divine potential of unlocking our tissue with neuromuscular therapy or stretching our bodies, we don't get to feel that right away. We created a reality where we have to feel the pain and face the ignorance, the slumber, the darkness of being kept from these engineered sciences of light and not having them through our upbringing and finding them, being away from them for so long and having to find our way back to them through all of the intensity that has collected from not having them with us. But I can promise you, number one, the first time I had this work done, I could barely lay on the table. I was in so much pain and I was so frustrated to feel like I was just so screwed up. And like, it just seemed so overwhelming how much trauma and pain I had in my body to face. And that I couldn't even lay on the table without flinging my body off when I would start getting these releases. I was so reactionary. I would literally couldn't even lay still. And I was aware that this was my stuff. It had nothing to do with the techniques. It had nothing to do with the, with the practitioner. It had to do specifically with, wow, an awareness of, I am freaking screwed up. I saw that from the moment I started the process of unlocking my tissue, that the intensity, the compression, the detox would never be as intense ever again, because I was seeing large amounts of accumulation that I had started a draining process with. And had I not found it for another year, it would be a year more intense than the process has started right then. So I found myself, as intense or unbearable as my process was going into starting to drain, I knew I was grateful that I was starting it now rather than a year from now, because it would only be more intense. And I just felt grateful that I had kind of caught it where it was at. As much as it wasn't ideal, it was still really intense. I just had the foresight and awareness. It would be so much more intense if I didn't start this right now. Wow, I'm glad I wish I found this 10 years ago, but wow, I'm glad I found this now. Okay, well, I think I understand your question. Um, basically, if you're recording everything that's ever happened to you physically and emotionally, chemically you become saturated and it affects your body's physiological and psychophysical aspects of your interfacing. Meaning, if you have been bombarded, like most of us have, with fear since we were little, there's a good amount of neurochemical fear and adrenaline that's kind of just tinting your sunglasses of experience without you realizing it, and you're desensitized to it. As we drain chemically the residues that have been dosing us like a psychedelic, our consciousness with more fear, with more stress, with more insecurities, with more nervousness or neuroses or narcissism. These are all early ignorant stages of the ego that get collected in the chemistry that we were supposed to be moving out of us as we evolved past them. But because we don't have a form of neurochemical rite of passage for draining, we're all like little babies in physically mature adult bodies. But it's corrupting the programming and patterning of your evolution to higher states. That's a big one working with a lot of actors and performers, is the body doesn't know when you're acting or playing a role, if you're an evil bad guy or something like that, doesn't know the difference between what's real and not real. And similarly, your psyche, your emotional state, your memory, who you are, is all chemically also accumulated in your system, and it becomes compromising for you to move beyond that, for you to transcend that into the Sat Nam, the true identity of who you are, because you're identified as Micah, or identified as John, or Sally. You're identified from the moment that your consciousness started identifying with your body and you pulled yourself together and the ego compressed into the musculature and the tissue. A good part of that compression and the lack of space anymore in you is because you have filled yourself chemically with a logged set of neural net programs, of identified, self-identified illusions of self that is your I am, in this false story and narrative that is your play that you're in. Now, you notice when an actor's in a play, they're super involved in the scene and they're all in it, but there's like a script supervisor in the background behind that's looking that this is a play and none of this is real, and this, we're in this scene and the scene comes next. It's a lot easier to become the script supervisor and pull yourself out of these roles we get so identified with, because the identification comes in gripping onto the flesh from the moment that you come into the body, and no one has given us the decompression practices to daily kind of decompress that character that you played, that role you played each day, out of yourself. So my point in giving you these self-treatment practices is really so you can be doing what your dentist wants you to do outside of getting deep cleans, and deep gum cleans or deep cleaning or fillings or whatever. Is your dentist wants to see your practices at home be reflected in your visits. Maintenance. You could get the deepest teeth cleaning in the world, but if you don't go brush your teeth 3 days later, even a day later, you got reaccumulation. You need to have a sovereign level of independence for decompressing yourself. Forget about all of the heady things or the techniques or the principles. Grab your tissue, go side to side and up and down. Squeeze and compress your body. Palpate your body. There are different types of touch. There's comfort touch, there's romantic touch, and there's medicine touch, which is literally the touch with the intent to palpate, to flush, to move. I'm giving you the foundational principle and the techniques of how you can explore variances of this, but in its most simple form. Squeeze yourself. Squeeze your body, palpate your body, give yourself a squeeze. Squeeze your leg. I can just squeeze my tissue. Now, I could also take my thumb and do a kneading technique. I can strum on my calves. I can stride, and I can take and I can pluck. Here's my pluck. Notice the whole hand is moving. I'm not digging with my thumb like this because it feels more agitating. And again, this is a magical thing. Notice the difference if you try digging with your thumb hook tool and try holding the thumb still, planting the whole tool in, and turning it, turning the whole thing. You'll notice it's just more receivable, even if it's intense. These are the nuances that we're going to go into in more depth with the self-treatment program, where we cover this in a way that it just takes more time. It takes more interaction. We've been on here for an hour and 50 minutes, and I barely feel like we're scratching the surface at this point. When I'm integrating these techniques, and I'm going to review them before we close out, and we look at a couple other aspects that are very relevant with understanding how, because I want you to go off today and I want you to start doing these movements. I want you to start planting and pulling. Look, planting in deep, soft to the next point, deep, soft to the next point, deep. Look, I could symmetrically just start moving down my whole body, planting and pulling with these rake tools. Rakes are pretty easy because you don't have to worry about your thumb getting the right point. And I don't want you to think that there's a right point either. Obviously, brachial plexus under here. For most of us, it's pretty easy to get. Make your C shape, stick it under here, under the armpit, find a spot and turn the whole thing. You should feel electricity, shoot down. Don't try to force anything. You ride it down the edge to the elbow here, through the ulnar nerve, and I want you to try clearing it out. 4 techniques on your arms. Practice your arms today. We're going to review some of this tomorrow. I'm going to show you again from here. Kneading, planting and pulling, planting and pulling, planting and pulling. We're deep, we're soft, we're masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. This is that kneading. Then we have strumming, deep, soft, deep, soft, deep, soft. Then we have striding. Now you notice I can go really flat, or I can actually press in a little bit more. Good. And then we have our plucking, okay? Like I said, find the edge of a muscle, write it down. Planting, planting and pulling, soft, planting and pulling, soft to the next point, planting and pulling. Here, notice that. Now you do 3 of these. Boom. I'm just teaching general patterning. There's far more details we do with this, but I want you to just start generically opening these up. So I'm going to do it on the other side. Kneading, 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 planting and pulling, planting and pulling, planting and pulling, planting and pulling, planting and pulling. Okay. Now I'm strumming, 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 striding, 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 striding. And final one, because those first 3 warmed up for the pluck. Pluck, 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 pluck. Good. Ooh, I mean, my arms feel great right now. Okay, even if you're worried you're not doing it 100% correct, I guarantee you're going to produce results, because this isn't some crazy foreign thing I'm teaching you. How to unlock your cells, how to cross laterally expand your tissue is a natural process. It would be like finding out how to unspiral something that was designed to spiral, okay? You're intuitively supposed to be remembering these yogic sciences and neuromuscular therapy. They are ancient engineered systems for the user of the vehicle, which means you should have some innate intuitive response to this. The first time that somebody fired the brachial plexus nerve under here for me and electricity shot down my arm, I was like, what is that? I was trying to recreate it the entire day, trying to figure it out with nobody to show me even a quarter of what I've shown you in this video today. And I was figuring it out myself. I was feeling it out. I was trying to understand where, whoa, there's something right there. Okay. I was looking at the anatomy books, finding where the nerves and muscles are. I had no one to guide me. I just felt the intuitive awareness that my body's supposed to do this, and look how different this feels. Whoa, there is something to this. And so I'm trying to give you more, and yet at the same time, not codependently get you to feel as though you need all this heady stuff to figure it out. I want you to puritanically, intuitively go in and start feeling it out yourself. Go across and along tissue. It is simple. We can get into some crazy details around it. And there's beautiful nuances in engineering and science, but at the same time, come in pure. Come in pure. Use your fists. Try these. Try going on your legs right here. You can just try circles. Look at that. Kneading, kneading, kneading. Strumming, 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 strumming. Striding, striding, striding. Trying to also just demonstrate so that monkey see, monkey do. You're just seeing enough how I do this. Planting and pulling. Lift and soft to the next point. Plant and pull. Lift, soft to the next point. Plant and pull. Plant and pull. And don't try to rush. Don't try to go as fast. Take your time. Plant and pull. Plant and pull. Lift, soft. Plant and pull. Lift, soft. Plant and pull. Take your time. Pace yourself. I want the technique to be more refined for you. Okay? And reflexology, when we learn reflexology, the way you're supposed to reflex is actually to roll the thumb on the reflex point. But everybody does this thumb walking thing, which is easier, but you're actually supposed to roll the thumb like this, and rolling the thumb reflexes the nerves in the hands and feet better. But it's easier to go like this, to inchworm along, and a lot of reflexologists get really bad habits because they half-ass and do the way that they can do it faster, not the correct way, which you should learn the muscle memory for right away, which is why I'm really trying to get you set and integrated into anchor, plant, and pull, 4 techniques. Now, from the 4 techniques, kneading, strumming, striding, and plucking. I'm going to add another one on for you. Okay, it's kind of a sub technique, but it's called tacking. And so, where I took that hook of the thumb and I went across the muscle, now I'm going to plant in and go lengthwise. Planting and pulling, planting and pulling, planting and pulling, planting and pulling, planting and pulling. You can see how I'm literally hooking the length of the muscle and pulling it and lengthening it out with like a hook, like, come here. I'm literally hooking. Yes, I used a Mortal Kombat reference. Hooking and pulling the muscle to lengthen it out, okay? To lengthen it out, all right? And that hooking or tacking can be done with the knuckles this way, okay? Can be done with a mace, right? It can be done with a fist, which is less intense. It can be done with an elbow, okay? These are our tools, okay? So I've introduced the techniques. We have the principle. Really quick, I want to get into the tools. Rake. Rakes can go side to side and lengthwise, right? So you can see a rake tool used on my pectoralis right now, okay? Okay, hook tool, okay? Hook tools are for detailed areas, like around the eyes, okay? Around the eyeball here, around the sinuses. I use hook tools here along the clavicle where the vagus nerve is. I'll use a hook tool, okay? That's a hook tool. It doesn't move. It stays solid when it's working. It stays solid. Notice I'm not doing this. It's the whole thing. You have to hold the tool as a solid form. It has to be an extension like of a tool. Neuromuscular release therapy, which is just what I call it in this life, it is an ancient system that has come up through several civilizations. The last known civilization that I know that was in, I believe, was in ancient China, okay, around the 16th century. And you can see a lot of parallels with martial arts with this. I mean, in martial arts, in Kung Fu, we have different striking styles, right? Like tiger and snake, all right? And in these styles of martial arts, these are striking tools that you use. And when you have a striking tool, it's not soft. It's held like a striking tool, right? It's held hard, okay? Or like these are mantis. These are striking tools. So similarly with healing, these tools are solid. They have the same mechanics that I've studied with martial arts and Kung Fu. So I see a lot of parallels with neuromuscular release therapy. At least this form that's come back through me is more a form that I believe was cultivated in China. It has more of a martial art basis to it. So these hand tools are important in that regard of staying solid. And like I said, it's way more uncomfortable if my finger's doing all the stimulating as opposed to the whole arm. And I'm holding a tool here. So my point of contact is a point of stillness, which means I react less to it, as opposed to my point of contact being point of action. Ugh, it's just diggy. It's more reactionary. It feels like someone's almost hard tickling you, as opposed to if I'm doing this. This is a really good way to show stillness. Is my fist can't really dig very much, so it's pretty solid and just steadfast, which means I have to use the rest of my arm to initiate this. This is a really easy tool to feel. It doesn't create the same reaction as something like this, where you can see my fingers are doing the digging from the point of contact. These are little subtleties. Kinesthetic invisibility as a concept. These are brilliant nuances of this technology that most people don't have a great sensitivity or awareness around how touch works. Which is half of why martial arts are so powerful, is if you don't understand body mechanics, or you don't understand that if somebody grabs you and you're tense, that without them knowing it, they can feel what you're doing. But if you're soft, they don't know what you're doing, and you can manipulate your body and them without them reacting to a point where you could throw them across the room. It's the same thing when we're manipulating trauma out of your body. We want to do it in a way that's not triggering it very intense, or the least amount possible, which is going to be making our point of stimulation and contact stillness. I'm over exaggerating right now by putting my hand here, and instead of digging like this, see how my whole arm is moving and my point of contact is still, and it literally does feel less intense than if I were to do this right here and dig from my point of contact being point of action, if I go still and the whole arm, see the difference, the whole arm is moving, these are still. It just feels better. It feels cleaner, it feels safer, it feels more solid. Okay, so we have our tools, we have just the flat pad of the thumb, we have the hook. Okay, flat pad of the thumb, you can initiate anywhere. You can do any of the techniques, really chill with just the flat pad of the thumb. And then, of course, you can intensify to more concentrated, pinpointed work. And I'm also doing different things. The plucking technique is also very specifically for the nerves. Like I said, brachial plexus, first nerve junction right under there. Ooh, boom, shooting out my fingers right now. And I'm following that nerve junction downward, transitions to the ulnar nerve through here. And then I'm taking it out the hand with that plucking tool that I told you about. And I wouldn't just go in and pluck unless I warmed the tissue up first, which I've been doing with all these other techniques. The pluck is the final technique. The first three are handling the nerves, the ligaments. The pluck is specifically treating the nerves. But remember, what else am I doing right here? I'm separating muscle fibers in a very precise way. You can see, you can see I'm separating a muscle. You can see the line right here. I'm going down it and I'm literally separating the muscle from itself and individualizing it. Remember, healthy muscles here, compressed muscles here. We're going in and separating. Watch what happens when I pull one of these apart. See how the other ones start pulling apart right there? When you start decompressing muscle fiber, it spreads. It starts decompressing. One strand of fiber decompresses down and starts unlocking other strands of fiber. We're working within cross-laterally unlocking the fiber structure of your body that is compressing and contracting your entire life. And we're now diving in and releasing large amounts of that. Large amounts, which are going to produce what I'm feeling right now, which is space in my chest. My arms feel very loose and liquid right now. They're feeling great. I feel really refreshed, actually. And I still feel I have some pain I have to go back and work through right here. I definitely have some concentrated lactic acid. Feels like some calcification right here between these two tendons on this right side, which makes sense because I was moving into a new house and put a lot of strain on both my arms recently. So you can see that not only am I identifying the physical aspects of what's going on that's feeling compromised by diving in and getting a look at it, but I'm tying back awareness to where did this specifically come from? Gosh, what did I do recently? It was from this. And when I lifted that one heavy bed frame up, I remember I pulled this. And so the memory starts coming out as I'm releasing it. It's actually coming out and I'm identifying it and it's leaving and I'm facing it. What a powerful and beautiful process. And the end result is that feels much better. And I am in the driver's seat. I am holding the power of the fact that I created this liberation and change in myself. Now, as we drain our chemical constitute, remember there are psychophysical ties to our psyche. So as you work on yourself, you might be working on yourself and you might have some deep emotional stuff get triggered and it comes up 2 hours later, okay? Because the biochemical matrix of feelings and psychological memory and trauma, when we start flushing that out of the tissue, it's moving, but at first it's moving kind of slow. And, a lot of patients will end up getting, including you might end up having a powerful emotional release because you'll hit something and just start crying. Why am I crying for working on my hand? I don't know. And then you might also start crying and be like, oh my God, I can completely remember what this memory is from. It's stuck in here. You might also treat this. It might be super painful. And like 2 hours later, you get hit with a wave of memory from something that happened and you start crying in the shower. There is no, because we're in a state of abstraction, like I said, from not living in our divine practices of freeing ourselves daily of our chemical accumulation, our history, our life accumulation, we've moved into this kind of hoarder category of jumbled, fragmented, stagnant accumulated pain, suffering body, pain body, suffering trauma system, and everyone has a different stress code sequence, which means I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be like for you to start working with yourself and unlocking your trauma. I can tell you the things that I experience. I can tell you things that many patients experience over the last 20 years of me doing this, but I can also tell you that whatever the process is, you just got to trust it. Trust your tech. Your tech's designed to be cross-laterally unlocked. All right. If it's really painful to do, then you need to look at how you can apply this to keep moving that pain out along with the engineering of the tech, and trust the process. And you will be tested. Like I said, the first time you drain some of these areas, the next day they're going to feel probably sore because you started draining all this lactic acid and chemical memory and residue, and it's filtering in a different state than you understand. Remember, your average human's blood is fairly goopy. It's not very liquidy. Most of us are very dehydrated, and your body is supposed to have a lot more water in it than it does. And so what happens is our blood ends up not being as liquidy. It's more slow moving, like a honey almost, because it's full of all this rancid chemicals. I mean, varicose veins, getting these veins on your legs, it's toxic blood that you're not moving through your system. So it gets stagnant in you and kills the little capillaries, and they float to the surface of the skin. That's why people get varicose veins. Varicose veins should not exist if we were in a healthy system that was running properly off of its technology. There's a multitude of health conditions that I could break down for you should never exist if we were activating our technology from birth properly with an intergenerational, both familial and cultural integration of these profound sciences. But we don't. So now we are on a path of abstraction, finding our way back home to center. And I can tell you the one thing that you should definitely not do is avoid trying to explore opening yourself because you don't feel like you got the techniques or you don't know what you're doing. I want to support you to trust yourself. Okay, and just a reflection of you. Just a reflection of you that was willing, with no one telling me techniques or principles or anything. The man who figured out the base concept of this did not identify the principles. He did not identify and define the principle or come up with techniques. It was monkey see, monkey do. He would do it on me, and it was very medieval and unrefined, and not even close to what I've cultivated and cultured the system in what I truly understand to be the most authentic and puritanical way off of its engineering, off of the body mechanics of the system, off of how the nervous system and the meridians run. I spent the last 20 years cultivating something, but I'm telling you right now, to build confidence in you, that I was flying blind and I have way less instruction and guidance than I'm giving you right now. Okay, at 19 years old, and also didn't have very much of an anatomy and physiology. I was in massage school at the time, trying to getting my first certification in licensing and my first sciences. Now, eight sciences and certifications, licensing later, and the founder of the system, I can tell you that I had to figure it out. And actually, I feel blessed on some level. And also at the same time, it was really frustrating. And I created the structure and the system for this work so that it would be easier for you. So I know this is, it's foreign. I always watch people when I try to teach them this, they get a little alienated with it, but you just got to get into the tempo of anchor, plant and pull, release, feather, anchor, plant and pull. Think of yourself like a sewing machine. Think of yourself like you're brushing your teeth. Look, you're just kind of brush scrubbing along as you go in the different areas of your body, right? I'm going, look at this. I'm taking a rake. I'm going around this side and I'm going across and up and down, across and up and down, working on the triceps here, across and up and down. And now try to always this is a good way to make sure you stay balanced. Try to always do the opposite side. Even if, let's say I just did a little bit of the trap right now, you notice how I went over and I just matched it to do the other side. That way you can always kind of keep yourself in check on what you've done. A lot of times I would get off and do crazy things and be like, what did I do on this side? Oh, I got to try to figure it out on this side. Work in small segments. Play with, okay, doing those 4 techniques on this side, and don't go into the rest of the arm. Do it on this side first so that you can feel, oh, okay, that feels pretty balanced. All right. It's time to start exploring your technology, and that means going inward. It means trusting. It means brave new world. It means time to explore inward and activate this thing to its divine potential. I hope that some of these principles and techniques and the basic explanation that we've spent the last 2 hours going into is helpful in that regard. Tomorrow's going to be a lot of Q&A, discussion. That's what our third day is going to be about. It's going to be about addressing breath work, asking me questions about, it's going to be more interactive. I want you guys to be able to ask questions and interface and have your cameras on. And if you want me to look at your posture, am I doing this right? I want to explore that with you and go into it. But for now, I want to leave you with, again, just real quick review. Planting and pulling, anchor, plant, and pull is our principle. Pressing past the epidermal and dermal layers deeper, doing our initial instruction of manipulation deep, then we go soft to whatever point next. Generally, if we start on one end of a muscle, we want to go all the way out that muscle. So if you're not familiar with a muscle, somewhere's hurting on your body, go on your anatomy and physiology through Google or whatever. Find anatomy and physiology, look at the area. Oh, okay, the muscle goes from here down to here. Okay, well then I see, and then apply these principles and techniques just to what you're visually looking at. It says my internet connection is unstable. Outstanding. Good stuff. That means we're not getting fully just blasted with the 5G here. Amazing. So, principle, technique. Let them be guidelines, let them be foundations, let them not be mental triggers for you, mental activators, mental distractors from the feeling and the intuition of just pressing somewhere into your body, okay? We're going to get a little bit more into specifically nerve activation tomorrow in our Q&A. Of the techniques that I've shown you, kneading, circle, strumming, side, across the muscle, striding, planting, pulling down, lengthening the muscle, plucking, actually individualizing with a more deeper precision to separate the muscle, individualize the muscle, and activate the nerves on those primary nerve junctions. We have a nerve junction here in the wrist, you'll see. We have a nerve junction at the ulnar nerve in the elbow. That's that funny bone. When you'll hit it, well, you can actually go over it and not hit it hard, but actually feel the electricity release out from there. And that is tied up here to the primary junction we want to go from, which is brachial plexus. And then from brachial plexus, we're going in reverse, by the way. We've got the vagus nerve, which is through the neck right here. Now, many of you have probably heard about the vagus. The vagus nerve is a dynamic wiring system that goes, there's 2 of them that go on either side, and it is like a corkscrew wiring system that is in charge of everything from wiring all the organs to stem cell production, and we activate that vagus nerve right here, okay? But the thing about the vagus nerve is, it is so intense, and so you don't want to force anything, all right? You definitely don't want to dig with the point. You want to create a point that's still and initiate it from there. This is a big thing. People get really heady about trying to hit the nerves. Don't try, okay? Just put that C shape in under this bundle of nerves here. If you turn the entire hand, you're not putting the pressure on one point to try to find things. That's another big handicap I want to support you to avoid. Don't just be focused on digging away and trying to find stuff. Plant in, use the rest of your arm, the rest of the tool, And I promise you, you will hit these so much cleaner than if you're focused on that single point or that single point or that single point trying to do it. Use your whole body to initiate these techniques and the primary principle, okay? Anywhere in your body, once you start getting the tempo of how to press in, manipulate the tissue, release, soft to the next point, press in. Once you start getting your sewing machine technique down, you are going to be limitless without even knowing the pattern. You can work on any part of yourself. Look up what it looks like. Look up the structure if you're not familiar with anatomy, and start working it along the structure of the muscle itself. Or find a nerve and try to just go over it. Don't force anything with your body. Explore gently, and at the same time, explore from a place of intuition and body response. Don't get mental. So this is so healthy for all of you, for me to throw this challenge, just because it's going to pull you out of your head so much and out of the mental mind to try to be in your body and start just feeling what it feels like to work on yourself. Okay? I hope that this has helped. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We're still refining this process, and in a sense, refining it to be really aligned for the content and the continued education platforms that we're offering. I'm getting dialed more and more each time. And a fully edited version of the day one class, the event, the live event day one yesterday, is up now on Matrix Body Mechanics Group, and also I believe on Matrix Body Mechanics TV. I will be editing and graciously slicing this video into something that will be far cleaner than what this live stream was, and I will be putting that up today as well. I hope you enjoyed the almond milk video, and I'll be working on part 2, which is how to make desserts, macaroons, and cookies with that nut pulp and dehydrate that, which is really great because, again, you're already going to be getting all this nut pulp if you're making nut milks. And I do want to say those nut milks were for any nut you can really use, primarily 2.5 to 3 cups with a pitcher full of a 64-ounce pitcher full of water. You put the 2.5 to 3 cups in, and you blend it up, and then press the pulp out. So what do we do with this pulp? This pulp ends up just going in my composter I used to. So now I mix that nut pulp, and I either make a cold temperatured cake, which goes in the fridge, it's refrigerated, or I dehydrate cookies or cinnamon buns or dessert like treats or snacks, or a vegan crunchy cheese crumble where I'll mix nutritional yeast and some fermented coconut yogurt in with the nut pulp, really cheese it out, dehydrate it, and it's this like yummy, croutony, cheesy crumble as well. So these are ways that we can, again, every time I get a gallon of milk, I get, 30 macaroons, or a container of this cheese crumble that we sprinkle on salads. It's an awesome thing to get 2 products from 1 ingredient. So I want to show you more how to do things like this more efficiently, and again, once you get into a tempo and a flow with it, you'll be just finishing off your almond milk and your macaroons from last week as the fresh batch comes up. You'll start to get into these scheduled tempos where your biochemical nutrition is literally, it's in a routine of lifestyle that is really flowing and dialed. So check out the almond milk video. Part 2 will be coming up. I'll probably try to do maybe macaroons and maybe some cheese crumble just to show you how to do both. I'm going to be working on that today, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the Q&A and discussion circle tomorrow, where you can ask questions. It'll be more interactive for us, and we'll be talking a lot more about the continued education platforms, the 12 video series for the self-treatment system, which, again, introducing these principles and techniques today on this live event was not to fully take you through the self-treatment training, because that is a more involved process, which is why we're literally creating, professionally done content for this. And when we do web classes on this that are live on the self-treatment system, they'll be like, 3 hours a day or 4 hours a day that we're doing this for like a week. It literally is that in depth to learn how to get this. But At the same time, I feel like there's a counter side that it's so simple if you can just not get heady and feel intuitively with the base principles of what I've shown you should have more than enough to go off of to start unlocking and liberating yourselves. Um, Remember, the body is a cage chemically. It is holding everything about you. It's very hard, no matter how much spiritually you've done, to get out of this thing if it's got all these ties to the chemical history of who you've been that are like the tint on these sunglasses. They are gradually accumulating over the years of your life, where you start gradually warping farther and farther away from being purely engaged in the present moment. You're living in your past. You're worrying about your future because chemically you've logged in the illusion of all of this identified in self. And from the moment you start decompressing yourself, I'm gonna tell you right now, watch what happens. You're gonna feel space. And that space may start physically in the sensation, but it will reverberate into your psyche and your mood and your perspective and your perception of so many things that you start releasing the history, the trauma that is in you. My awareness of the greatest enslavement to our people is not the 5G, it's not the economic collapse. It's that a long time ago, those in power understood that we live in a biochemical, organic machine that is logging memory. And if we don't teach the people how to release that memory, then they'll become enslaved chemically to the programs we put into them, to the programs and the trauma that naturally accumulates in their lives, and they won't live to a pure, freer potential in their moment because they'll be slaves to their past and to the conditioned constructs that we bombard you with. And I want to just plant that seed for everyone that thinks you understand the programming in TV, the predictive programming that we're seeing. Where do you think that stuff actually really affects you from? Do you think you just see it in your mind? If it's predictive programming and we witness it and then it manifests out in reality, and they've done so many studies and they've learned this aspect of psychological operations and psychopathy, don't you think that it's understood that the primary reason that that programming stays in you is because you've recorded chemical memory around either fear-based traumas that trigger your mind into a state of control, or deeper fear-based conditioning or chemical programmed conditioning that gets logged into the tissue? Isn't it interesting that we're in a state of the world where touch is completely non-existent now? It's literally like, again, we were so much in a world that was alienated to touch that we started a movie called Release. We've shot over 600 hours. We're like three-quarters of the way done with it. It's not finished, but I started a feature-length documentary about the power of touch and how it's alienated in the world. Isn't it interesting that I already thought it was so alienated? I couldn't even have imagined that it's been accelerated to where human beings are alienated to such an extreme level of lack of touch and contact with each other, with themselves, brainwashed and fear-based to this cootie concept, not understanding that if you really understood how viruses and bacteria work and what you are comprised of, you wouldn't be afraid because you'd see how silly it is, because you are a bacterial viral civilization. So our lack of education and our conditioning and our programming and our chemistry has created this state. It's forced us into the isolation cauldron. It's time to release the body to help liberate the mind and consciousness. It's time to truly be free. That's going to sum it up for today. Live event day 2, principles and techniques of neuromuscular release therapy. I'm going to be dropping at least a few pages of the manual for principles and techniques for you guys to check them out. I'm going to put that into somewhere on the Facebook group or somewhere else. I will add that in, and we'll probably go through some of it on the group call tomorrow. Once I get this more dialed and the chaos that's in here, we'll do some more screen sharing that way. So super grateful to you all. It's an honor to to lay the foreground for this. Like I said, I'm far from happy with this infrastructure and platform for us to really teach this to you. So I will continue to keep refining and evolving it the best that I can. So again, don't forget, brush your body, floss today. Go out in your day, do your thing, but when you go tonight, nighttime, sleepy time, try it. Why don't you just try even this? Rake tool. Plant into your head. Go start around the hairline. Circles. Press in circles. Lift gentle to the next point. Press in circles, circles, circles. I'm doing a series of deeper presses with a soft feather in between and go all around your scalp with this rake tool. Look, you can do it symmetrically. Planting and pulling, circles deep. Then I'm soft to the next one. Press in, circle, soft. Press in, circle, soft. Press in deep, anchor, circle, soft, and feather to the next anchor, and deep, and circle. And cover the whole head. Just even start with the head. Do it for like a minute. See how you feel. See how much space, even just from doing that right now, my whole head feels more spacious. And then try just continuing. Circles. Don't even do the other techniques. Try just the kneading. Press in, circle, soft, press in, circle, and then stop and try each one of your arms. Circle, press in, circle, press in, circle, press in, circle, press in, circle, press in. Do the other arm, press in, circle, press in, squeeze and circle, squeeze and circle, squeeze, and try the chest, plant in. Circle kneading technique, soft, press in, deep, circle kneading, and cover. Just go for it. Keep sweeping all the way, the whole body, all the way down to your legs. Circle, press and pull. Whoa, maybe you're not doing it 100% right. Who cares? Press in, circle, press in all the way down to your feet, and then lay down flat and just tune into your body and feel what you're feeling. Because I guarantee you're going to feel the foundation of decompression in space in the body and a sense of freedom that we can work with. We can build off that, okay? We'll build off it in the programs that come. And before you know it, you will feel the ultimate level of confidence, of empowerment, of sovereignty that you could fix you. If you have something comes up, you wake up, oh, this is sore. Oh, all right, I'll work on it. When you work on it, oh gosh, that feels better. And you'll start sharing that with your friends because something magical happens when you learn the mechanics of touch and how to unlock tissue and how to make somebody feel better. It's just magical to go out and touch and interface and utilize that skill with people. And we want to come out of this fear-based, alienated place fully lightsabers blazing, ready to touch and activate and heal each other and really be grateful. And I mean, how many of you have another appreciation and level of awareness and honor for touch and contact now that, you know, sometimes you have to lose something before you can really, really appreciate it. So I feel like we can come in with a second wave of contact and touch that will be so powerful for us as a people. So let's cultivate our skills right now while we have some off time, some downtime, some isolation time. Blessings. Sat Nam. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And I hope that this video helped to activate what's already in you, which is the knowledge and the power internally that you are a magic, limitless, divine creation vessel that's just been, unfortunately, not informed or not updated on the level of tech that you embody, that you have the potential to take your brilliance, your magic to. Human being, 2 words, the human or the being. The being is the limitless side, okay? We've been engaged and conditioned and even dumbed down into a more animalistic version of the human side. It's time to transition. It's time to shift. It's time to merge those 2 words to really embody it, embody the human being, okay? And we can't do that if we're carrying the suffering of our past collected that's affecting us in a way we don't even realize. All right. Blessings, Satnam, and Aloha. Like a sky, Matrix Body Mechanics. feel free, again, check out the website, explore, look at some of the media, some of the videos in there. You can see some really powerful transformations with this work. And we will be active. We will be interacting. I will be going back and we'll be back in the clinic. I will be seeing patients again. But for now, like I said, let's shift the perspective that we're all self practitioners. It's time to empower ourselves in that way.